Picture this. While everyone else is scrambling to explain themselves, justify their warnings, or desperately seeking validation with "I told you so," there's one man who simply vanishes. No dramatic exits, no finger-pointing, no need for recognition. He saw it coming, prepared accordingly, and when chaos erupts, he's already 3 steps ahead and miles away. This is the Sigma male's ultimate power move, the strategic disappearance. It's not about being antisocial or running from problems. It's about understanding that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. When the world burns around failed predictions and collapsed systems, the Sigma doesn't stick around to collect credit or watch the aftermath. He's already building his next chapter. If you've ever felt that urge to say, "I told you so," but chose silence instead, if you've ever walked away from drama while others fed off it, you're tapping into something profound. Today, we're diving deep into why the Sigma's disappearing, act is his greatest strength, and how this invisible power separates him from every other male archetype. But before we begin, if you're ready to master the art of strategic invisibility and unlock the Sigma mindset that keeps you 10 steps ahead of everyone else, hit that subscribe button. This channel is your gateway to understanding the psychology behind the most misunderstood and powerful male archetype of our time. 1. The psychology behind strategic silence. The Sigma male operates on a frequency that most people can't comprehend. While alphas need acknowledgement and betas seek approval, the Sigma has transcended the basic human need for external validation. This isn't emotional numbness, it's emotional intelligence at its peak. When a Sigma predicts market crashes, relationship failures, or business collapses, he doesn't share these insights to be proven right. He shares them, if at all, to genuinely help. But here's where it gets fascinating. The moment people ignore his counsel or dismiss his warnings, something clicks in his brain. It's not anger or frustration, it's strategic calculation. The Sigma understands human psychology better than most therapists. He knows that people don't want solutions, they want validation for their poor choices. They don't want truth, they want comfort. When someone ignores a Sigma's advice and later faces the predicted consequences, the average person would feel compelled to say, "I told you so." The Sigma, he's already mentally moved on. This psychological detachment isn't cold, it's protective. The Sigma has learned that investing emotional energy in other people's choices is a losing game. Instead, he invests that energy in his own growth, his own preparations, his own success. When disaster strikes others, he's not celebrating their downfall. He's simply not surprised by it. Consider this real-world example. A Sigma notices his company's financial irregularities months before the collapse. He quietly updates his resume, builds his network, and secures alternative income sources. When the company implodes and colleagues panic, they might remember his subtle warnings. But instead of waiting around to be vindicated, he's already 3 months into his new venture. The Sigma's strategic silence serves multiple purposes. First, it protects his reputation from being labeled as negative or pessimistic. Second, it prevents others from becoming dependent on his insights. Third, and most importantly, it maintains his competitive advantage. Information is power, and the Sigma understands that broadcasting his analytical abilities diminishes their value. This psychological framework creates an interesting paradox. The more right the Sigma is, the more invisible he becomes. He doesn't collect "I told you so" moments like trophies because he's too busy collecting actual victories. While others are stuck in the past, proving their predictions correct, the Sigma is in the future, making new ones. The strategic silence also serves as a filter. It separates those who genuinely value his input from those who simply want to argue or seek attention. The Sigma quickly identifies who deserves his insights and who doesn't. This isn't arrogance, it's efficiency. Time is his most valuable resource, and he won't waste it on deaf ears. Why validation is the Sigma's kryptonite. For the Sigma male, seeking validation is like voluntarily entering a cage. It's the one thing that can transform his greatest strength, independence, into his greatest weakness. Understanding why validation becomes toxic for the Sigma mindset reveals the deeper philosophy behind his strategic disappearances. Validation creates dependency, and dependency creates predictability. The moment a Sigma starts needing others to acknowledge his correctness, he begins operating within their framework rather than his own. This is psychological quicksand for someone whose power comes from operating outside conventional systems. Think about it. When you need someone to say, "You were right," you're essentially asking them to judge your worth. You're giving them power over your self-perception. For alphas, this validation feeds their ego and reinforces their dominance. For betas, it provides the approval they desperately crave. But for sigmas, it's poison because it ties their success to other people's opinions. The sigma has learned something crucial that most men never grasp. Being right and being acknowledged for being right are two completely different games. The first game, being right, leads to actual results, real advantages, and tangible success. The second game, being acknowledged, leads to ego inflation, social drama, and strategic disadvantage. Here's a powerful example. Imagine a Sigma who correctly predicts a housing market crash. If he succumbs to validation seeking, he'll tell everyone about his prediction, hoping to be proven right. When the crash happens, he'll feel compelled to remind people of his foresight. But now he's revealed his analytical capabilities, made enemies of those who lost money, and positioned himself as a target for blame or resentment. The validation-resistant Sigma takes a different approach. He makes his predictions silently, positions himself to benefit from the crash, and when it happens, he's mysteriously absent from the conversations about who saw it coming. He's too busy, profiting from his foresight to care about credit for it. This resistance to validation extends beyond predictions. It influences how Sigmas handle relationships, career moves, and personal achievements. They don't need others to validate their relationship choices, so they can make decisions based purely on compatibility and happiness rather than social approval. They don't need validation for their career moves, so they can pursue opportunities that truly align with their goals rather than impressive-sounding positions. The Sigma understands that validation is a drug, and like any drug, it creates tolerance. You need more and more of it to achieve the same effect. Today, you need one person to acknowledge you were right. Tomorrow, you need 5. Next month, you need an audience. Eventually, your entire decision-making process becomes corrupted by the need for external approval. Breaking free from validation seeking requires developing what I call internal scorekeeping. The Sigma keeps track of his wins and losses privately, using his own metrics, his own standards, his own definitions of success. He doesn't need witnesses to his victories because he's not performing for an audience. He's building a life. This freedom from validation also explains why Sigmas can disappear so easily. They're not emotionally invested in other people's opinions of their choices. When they decide to leave a job, end a relationship, or move to a new city, they don't need consensus or approval. They've already validated the decision internally using their own criteria, the art of profitable predictions. The Sigma male doesn't make predictions to impress people or win arguments, he makes them to win at life. This fundamental difference in motivation creates a completely different approach to analyzing patterns, sharing insights, and acting on information. For the Sigma, prediction is not prophecy, it's preparation. Most people make predictions emotionally. They hope they're wrong about bad outcomes and hope they're right about good ones. The Sigma makes predictions analytically, treating them as hypotheses to be tested rather than statements to be defended. This emotional detachment allows him to see patterns that others miss because their vision is clouded by what they want to be true. The Sigma's predictive process follows a specific methodology. First, he observes without judgment, collecting data points that others dismiss as irrelevant. Second, he identifies patterns across different timeframes and contexts. Third, he tests his theories on a small scale before making larger commitments. Finally, he acts on his conclusions without announcing them to the world. Consider how a Sigma approaches a failing friendship. Instead of hoping things will improve or dramatically confronting issues, he notices the pattern: decreased communication frequency, shorter conversations, cancelled plans, and energy shifts. He doesn't make proclamations about the friendship's demise. Instead, he gradually reduces his investment while remaining cordial. When the friendship naturally fades, he's neither surprised nor hurt because he predicted and prepared for this outcome. The profitability aspect isn't always financial. It's about maximizing positive outcomes while minimizing negative impacts. A Sigma who predicts his industry's decline doesn't waste time trying to convince colleagues or save a sinking ship. He quietly develops skills in emerging fields, builds networks in growing industries, and positions himself for the transition. When his predictions come true, he's not unemployed and scrambling. He's already established in his new domain. This approach extends to investment strategies, relationship choices, health decisions, and lifestyle changes. The Sigma treats every major life area as a system that can be analyzed, predicted, and optimized. He doesn't make emotional decisions and then rationalize them. He makes rational predictions and then execute them emotionally neutral. The Sigma also understands the timing aspect of profitable predictions. Being right too early is often indistinguishable from being wrong. He's learned to factor in human psychology, market cycles, and social inertia when determining not just what will happen, but when it will happen. This temporal intelligence is what separates his successful disappearances from random exits. Real-world application. A Sigma notices his company's customer complaints increasing, employee turnover rising, and innovation declining. Instead of becoming the office prophet of doom, he starts building consulting relationships with the company's competitors. When the company eventually loses major contracts, he's not in the office receiving the bad news. He's in a new office, working with the companies that won those contracts. The art lies in making predictions that others can't see, acting on them while others are still in denial and being positioned for success when reality catches up to analysis. The Sigma doesn't predict to be right. He predicts to be ready, disappearing as a power move. For the Sigma male, disappearing isn't running away, it's strategic repositioning. While others view sudden departures as signs of weakness or instability, the Sigma understands that controlled disappearance is one of the most powerful moves in the human psychology playbook. It's the difference between being a victim of circumstances and being the master of them. The power of disappearance lies in its finality and its mystery. When an alpha leaves a situation, he often makes noise about it, ensuring everyone knows why he's going and where he stands. When a beta leaves, he usually provides extensive explanations and seeks understanding. But when a Sigma disappears, he simply isn't there anymore. This creates a psychological vacuum that forces others to confront their own assumptions and behaviors. Strategic disappearance serves multiple functions for the Sigma. First, it removes him from toxic environments before they can damage his energy or reputation. Second, it maintains his mysterious edge by never fully revealing his motivations. Third, it sends a powerful message without requiring confrontation or explanation. Finally, it preserves his time and emotional resources for more productive pursuits. The Sigma has mastered the art of the graceful exit. He doesn't slam doors or burn bridges. He simply stops opening them. When a relationship becomes draining, he doesn't initiate breakup conversations. He gradually becomes unavailable until the relationship naturally fades. When a job becomes unfulfilling, he doesn't complain to management. He quietly interviews elsewhere and submits his resignation with minimal explanation. This approach requires exceptional emotional regulation and strategic thinking. The Sigma must resist the human urge to explain himself, defend his choices, or seek closure through confrontation. Instead, he trusts that his absence will communicate more effectively than his words ever could. Consider this scenario. A Sigma has been warning his friend group about a particular member's manipulative behavior for months. Instead of engaging in group drama or trying to convince others, he simply stops attending gatherings where this person will be present. He doesn't announce his decision or create ultimatums. Over time, his absence is felt, and others begin to notice the dynamics. He predicted. By the time they reach out to him, he's already built new social circles with healthier individuals. The power move aspect comes from the psychological impact on others. When someone disappears without explanation, it forces introspection. People naturally wonder what they did wrong, what they missed, or what the disappearing person knew that they didn't. This creates a form of influence that persists long after the Sigma has left the building. Disappearing also protects the Sigma from being drawn back into situations he's already analyzed and rejected. There's no conversation that can convince him to return because he's not making emotional decisions that can be swayed by emotional appeals. His disappearance is based on data, patterns, and logical conclusions that won't change through persuasion. The Sigma's disappearing act also serves as a reputation protection mechanism. Instead of being associated with the drama, failure, or toxicity he predicted, he maintains his image as someone who makes good decisions and avoids problems. This enhances his value in future situations because people begin to associate his presence with positive outcomes and his absence with warning signs. Timing is crucial in the Sigma's disappearing act. Too early, and he appears impulsive or unreliable. Too late, and he becomes associated with the negative outcomes he was trying to avoid. The Sigma has developed an intuitive sense of when situations reach the point of no return, and he vanishes just before that threshold is crossed, building unshakable self-reliance. The Sigma male's ability to disappear without explanation stems from something deeper than strategy. It comes from unshakable self-reliance. This isn't the superficial independence that many men claim to have. It's a fundamental restructuring of how he relates to the world and his place in it. Self-reliance, for the Sigma, is both a skill and a philosophy. True self-reliance begins with emotional independence. The Sigma has learned to validate his own decisions, process his own emotions, and find satisfaction in his own achievements without requiring external confirmation. This doesn't mean he's antisocial or immune to human connection. It means he chooses connections from a position of strength rather than need. Financial self-reliance forms another crucial pillar. The Sigma understands that economic dependence creates psychological dependence. He systematically builds multiple income streams, maintains emergency funds, and develops skills that remain valuable across different economic conditions. This financial foundation gives him the freedom to disappear from situations without worrying about immediate survival needs. But perhaps most importantly, the Sigma develops intellectual self-reliance. He trusts his own analysis, his own judgment, and his own conclusions. When everyone else is following trends or accepting conventional wisdom, the Sigma is capable of independent thought. This intellectual confidence allows him to act on his predictions without requiring social proof or consensus. The development of self-reliance requires deliberate practice and systematic preparation. The Sigma regularly stress tests his independence by deliberately putting himself in situations where he must rely solely on his own resources. He travels alone, starts projects without partners, and makes important decisions without seeking advice. Each successful experience builds his confidence in his own capabilities. Physical self-reliance also plays a role. The Sigma maintains his health, develops practical skills, and builds physical capabilities that reduce his dependence on others. He can fix his own car, prepare his own meals, manage his own finances, and handle his own problems. This comprehensive self-sufficiency creates the foundation for his strategic disappearances. Self-reliance also involves developing what psychologists call internal locus of control. The belief that outcomes are primarily determined by one's own actions rather than external factors. The Sigma takes responsibility for his results, learns from his mistakes, and continuously improves his decision-making processes. This internal orientation makes him less susceptible to external pressures and manipulations. The Sigma's self-reliance creates a positive feedback loop. The more capable he becomes of handling life independently, the more selective he can be about his relationships and commitments. This selectivity leads to higher quality connections and experiences, which reinforces his preference for independence over dependence. Here's a practical example. When a Sigma's company announces layoffs, he doesn't panic or start networking frantically. His self-reliance means he's already prepared multiple exit strategies, maintained relevant skills, and built financial reserves. While others are stressed about their uncertain futures, he's calmly evaluating his options and making strategic moves. If the situation deteriorates beyond his threshold, he can disappear into a better opportunity without drama or desperation. This level of self-reliance also affects how others perceive and interact with the Sigma. People are naturally drawn to those who appear competent and independent, but they're also intimidated by them. The Sigma's self-reliance creates a natural filter that attracts high-quality people while repelling those who seek codependent relationships. Building unshakable self-reliance requires patience and persistence. It's not developed overnight or through single dramatic actions. Instead, it's built through thousands of small decisions to handle things independently, solve problems personally, and trust one's own judgment. Each day, the Sigma chooses self-reliance over convenience, independence over popularity, and capability over comfort. The Sigma's long-term thinking advantage. While most people operate on immediate gratification timelines and quarterly results, the Sigma male thinks in decades. This long-term perspective is what transforms his disappearing acts from impulsive exits into strategic positioning moves. Understanding how Sigmas process time and plan for the future reveals why their predictions are so often accurate and their sudden departures so well-timed. The Sigma's long-term thinking begins with accepting that most valuable outcomes require years to materialize. When he invests in learning a new skill, building a relationship, or developing a business, he's not expecting immediate returns. This patience allows him to make decisions based on long-term value rather than short-term comfort or social approval. This extended timeline also explains why Sigmas often appear to be overreacting to current situations. What others see as minor problems, the Sigma recognizes as early indicators of major future issues. His disappearance from a slightly toxic work environment might seem premature to colleagues, but he's projecting forward to see where those toxicity patterns lead. Over months and years, Long-term thinking requires the Sigma to develop pattern recognition across extended timeframes. He studies historical cycles, observes how similar situations have played out in the past, and identifies the early warning signs that others dismiss as temporary fluctuations. This historical perspective gives him a significant advantage in predicting future outcomes. The Sigma also understands compound effects, how small changes accumulate into massive differences over time. He applies this understanding to every area of his life: relationships, health, finances, skills, and reputation. This compound's perspective makes him incredibly patient with gradual improvements and incredibly intolerant of gradual deteriorations. When planning his strategic disappearances, the Sigma considers multiple future scenarios. He doesn't just ask, "What if I leave?" He asks, "What if I leave now versus 6 months from now? What opportunities might emerge? What bridges might I need to preserve? How will this decision look in 5 years?" This scenario planning ensures his disappearances position him for future success rather than just current relief. The Sigma's long-term thinking also affects how he handles information and relationships. He's not trying to win today's argument or solve today's problem. He's building the foundation for tomorrow's opportunities. This perspective makes him extremely strategic about what information he shares, which conflicts he engages in, and how he positions himself in various social and professional networks. Here's how this plays out practically. A Sigma notices his industry beginning to shift toward automation. Instead of fighting the change or hoping it will slow down, he begins learning programming and data analysis skills. 2 years later, when his company announces major automation initiatives, he's not threatened by the changes, he's positioned to lead them. His colleagues who ignored the early signs are now scrambling to adapt to a future he's been preparing for. The long-term perspective also influences the Sigma's relationship with success and failure. He understands that both are temporary states. In longer journeys, a current failure might be setting up a future opportunity, and a current success might be creating future vulnerabilities. This balanced view helps him make decisions based on long-term positioning rather than short-term emotions. Long-term thinking requires emotional regulation because it often means choosing delayed gratification over immediate pleasure. The Sigma must resist social pressures to conform, immediate temptations to take shortcuts, and emotional impulses to react quickly. This self-discipline is what enables his strategic patience and perfect timing. The Sigma's long-term advantage also comes from understanding that most people don't think beyond the next few months. This creates opportunities for those who do. While others are focused on immediate concerns, the Sigma is identifying and positioning himself for future trends, technologies, and market shifts. By the time these changes become obvious to everyone else, he's already established and profiting from them. The Sigma male's greatest weapon isn't his intellect, his independence, or even his mysterious nature. It's his ability to be right without needing to be recognized for it. While others chase validation, he chases results. While others seek acknowledgement, he seeks advantage. This disappearing act isn't about running away. It's about strategic positioning. It's about understanding that sometimes the most powerful move is the one nobody sees coming. The Sigma doesn't need applause for his foresight because his foresight is already paying dividends in ways others can't even comprehend. Remember, in a world obsessed with being right and being seen, the Sigma chooses to be effective and be gone. That's not just a personality trait. That's a superpower. If this resonates with your Sigma nature, don't just disappear from this video. Subscribe first. Join a community of men who understand that true power doesn't announce itself. It simply executes. Your future self will thank you for taking this step toward mastering the most sophisticated male mindset of our generation.